Welcome to Human Marketing, a weekly podcast for B2B marketers unpacking how brands can stay authentic, demonstrate authority, and build trust as AI floods our feeds with content. I'm Chris Nelson, founder of Human Video. We remotely produce podcasts and other video content with real humans and just the right amount of soul. Today I have 2 times exited founder and co-founder now of ReelFlow, Chris Wickson. Welcome to the Human Marketing Podcast, Chris.
Good morning, Chris. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
A lot of Chris's happening here. I was looking back, Chris, at how it all started, how we got to know each other, and I think I've traced it back in January to me commenting on a post you did. Might have been like a preview of your website or something like that, and it was just the whole concept of what you do really caught my eye, and you actually reached out to me and connected with me, and it wasn't very long after that we're like, look, there's a lot going on here of really useful like connections. Let's have a call. And we had the best call, just diving into the world of human video, I guess, in my side of things. Just as a bit of a cue up, could you tell me a little bit about that I guess 2 times exited kind of quick story, but also then just cue up ReelFlow for me and tell like the audience, I guess, what you're doing and what you're building.
Yeah, absolutely. So my sort of startup journey began back at university many years ago now. We built started with a job board in the early careers space for students, and that business thankfully took off and developed nicely here in the UK, offering options for school leavers, university students, graduates. And then within that business, we stumbled into the weird and wonderful world of B2B SaaS in around 2014. We developed a mobile app that we spun out as a separate company. And that app, the business was called Accrue, and we developed a event lead capture solution for B2B events. So we started working with a lot of B2B marketing teams, had a really great run with that business. We raised a little bit of funding, and we were scaling nicely, and we were very, very fortunate to get acquired in 2019, year before COVID, by an American marketing technology company called Integrate. So we kind of jumped off the Accrue journey and into the Integrate journey, and our team became part of Integrate, which was and is a marketing technology platform. So again, working with mid-market enterprise marketers across the whole suite of B2B marketing. And we, as part of the kind of acquisitions journey, my co-founder Andy and I, we did our earnout. We were there for 3 years on the sort of leadership team as that business scaled. And then we left there in 2022, took a bit of time out, but we both knew we wanted to start something again at some point. We felt like we'd still got enough years left on the clock to go again. We'd learned a huge amount on both those journeys. So last year we started working on what has turned into ReelFlow, which we're going to dive into and talk more about. But yeah, that's kind of the backstory that takes us up to ReelFlow.
I love it. And yeah, so I guess queuing that up perfectly and seeing the connection with what I'm doing. Just tell people a little bit about like what ReelFlow is, and I guess the problem maybe that you saw that you're kind of solving, and then just a little bit I guess about how it's going so far.
Yeah, definitely. So at a very high level, ReelFlow is an interactive video product for B2B websites and landing pages. In terms of the background, that's what led us up to building it, and I guess the problems we're trying to solve. We just felt there's a few things going on right now. The first one is this ever-changing B2B buyer landscape we're operating in. This was already happening before AI, but it's just been accelerated. And by that, I mean, certainly in mid-market enterprise, more buyers involved than ever before in a buying committee, requiring more touch points. Those buyer journeys that I think as marketers we perhaps felt were these nice linear funnels is clearly not the reality. It's a spaghetti mix of touch points and journeys and jumps all over the place. It's complex and it's hard. And what we also know is buyers are going further and further into their journey to a purchase before engaging with vendors than ever before. They want self-guided experiences. They want to build their own picture, learn along their own journey. And I think we're also, the data supports that, by the time a buyer does engage with a vendor, they've kind of already made their decision. They've probably, or they've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 vendors. Whereas maybe 5, 10 years ago, buyers would have been happy to speak to 10 vendors. They're now, much more pointed. So I think there's a swing back towards the importance of brand and trust and authenticity and all these, playing the long game when it comes to the B2B marketing. So we've got this like interesting landscape, and then a bit closer to that, the rise of video. We're all, as you know better than I do, we're all consuming more video than ever before, particularly in short form formats, particularly on social. LinkedIn are really pushing talking head content on their channel. So we've got rise of video, and then the final sort of scene setter is just, I guess, our perspective on B2B websites today. We're still building them like we did 10 years ago. We have this, particularly in B2B tech, B2B SaaS, there's this tried and, I won't say trusted formula, but there's this, complex, text-heavy, static website experiences. SEO forced us all to pack our websites full of content, but I think at the detriment of the visitor experience. And I just can't believe we're still going to be building websites like this in the next 2-3 years with everything that's going on. So those 3 things kind of brought us together to start working on ReelFlow. And to say very simply, it's in its primary format is an overlay video player that sits on top of existing websites or web pages with that kind of short form talking head content that we're also familiar with on social channels, and the player is interactive. So it's all about, I view ReelFlow really as not necessarily a video product, but a buyer enablement tool. Can we help you give your buyers, your visitors, a better experience on your site, navigate more deeply, get to the right information they're looking for, answer questions, and do so through video? And I guess the byproduct of that is brand humanization, building trust, familiarity. So yeah, that's what we're building, and we're still early days. But we're live on around 30 B2B websites now. B2B is the common thread. Beyond that, we've got a weird and wonderful mix of types of companies using it, from solopreneur startups to pilots with some pretty big sort of mid-market enterprise type companies in lots of different use cases. But we're making good progress. And we're pretty excited about the journey ahead.
Oh man, you kind of got me like super excited about it all over again. It's like when I first saw it, Chris, it immediately leapt out on me as like, as I say, just all the same things that you said, all the words there that I say every day, in terms of like the authenticity, the trust building aspect, humanizing of a brand, like we live in a world now, there's such a big movement of, as you say, of putting talking heads out there in terms of LinkedIn content. I see, a big movement in just getting more people from a company involved in putting content out. And I always advocated for having humans on your website. It shouldn't just be like what in this day and age, in terms of trust, anyone can just like throw up a website with stock photography and whatever. Like, it's terrifying. You do it in seconds probably now. But if you actually show your real human beings, and the ultimate extension of that is your real human beings on video being themselves, that's something I always advocated for. So when I saw, I guess, the implementation of your product is putting someone front and center above the fold usually, and actually the other element that leapt out to me was like the sort of chatbot almost starting with a human, like appearing in the bottom corner of every page, or just being there available. And obviously then the part of the product is these flows of decisions of, asking questions and maybe going in a different direction. Somebody pops up for 20 seconds, welcomes somebody, then gives them options, like, can I take you this direction? Are you looking for this? I love the whole thing, and it's just like another application of exactly what I'm trying to put out into the world and what we're doing, and for the very same reasons, like everything you talked about, the buyer journey. So I'd love you to just tell me a little bit more about one thing that I've kind of picked up even from your LinkedIn content is like the hero section, the homepage is one amazing application of it, but I feel like there's all these other probably less thought of applications like guiding someone through a pricing page or other things? Like, what ways have you seen already your clients using the kind of flow aspect of it, I guess, in a really interesting way, and like different ways of kind of humanizing the website experience?
Yeah, so as you alluded to there, the homepage is the obvious starting point. And I think in most cases, the objective on that homepage is really to get the visitor off the homepage as quick as possible. Like, I've worked on countless marketing website designs over the last 2 decades, and homepage is always the hardest, right? Particularly in mid-market enterprise, if you're selling products and services to a wide range of audiences, trying to build this sort of one-size-fits-all homepage is really tough. So people are using ReelFlow very effectively to grab attention on the homepage and then quickly get people off the homepage and that next level deeper into the site where actually the content is much more relevant for them. And then within the website, I mean, we're seeing people really any page on the site where you feel like a 30, 40, 50-second video of someone explaining a concept, a feature, the product can either complement the written text content on the page or in some cases replace it. Quite often have people describe ReelFlow as feeling like a bit of a concierge service around the website, or I'm going to date myself now. Remember Clippy in Word? That
Oh, it could be.
Clippy was Clippy was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
But that idea that you've got a like actual companion that's there you can click on at any point that isn't a crappy chatbot with canned responses, and we'll maybe come on to like the conversational AI piece.
No,
But
we
right
will.
now, yeah, but pre-recorded, natural sounding videos like, and you said there like pricing page, great example. We've got some really good use cases of customers where if you like you would be in a meeting and the prospect says, "So how does the pricing work?" and just explaining it like you would in normal language. Pricing pages can be confusing. So yeah, like I say, anywhere where there's sort of complex use cases, FAQs, contact us page, book a demo, just like explaining here's what happens next if you fill in this form. Particularly if you're a smaller business and you are the rep that the prospect is going to speak to. I quite often get that with people I speak to. They're like, "Oh, I've just been on the site and I feel like I was, just sort of talking to you." And then the only other one I'll quickly mention is we're seeing an increasing use of ReelFlow on landing pages as part of campaigns. So maybe like adjacent to the main marketing website, whether that's running paid campaigns to specific landing pages. Events is proving to be very popular for event registration. Account-based landing pages, if you're sending sort of personalized landing pages to prospects, adding video to those pages. And because of the nature of the product in its primary form is that the overlay, whilst we do have an embedded version, the overlay is so easy to add to an existing page. You don't have to get web developers involved to redesign pages. It's really there to complement. So yeah, really, one of the exciting things, but also one of the challenges we have is it is so versatile. You could, in theory, use it on any page, on any site, which is a good thing, but also not. We are trying to be really focused on this is primarily a B2B, buyer product, not consumer product, or rather people asking, could I use ReelFlow inside my product for onboarding, guiding people, which you could, but we're trying to stay pretty focused
Yeah.
on this B2B,
Maybe in the future.
B2B piece.
I mean, and there's so many other options. I love the landing page application. I really love the ABM application. I've even recently created a whole series of kind of videos with AEs doing really personalized videos in ABM campaigns, and it's really just it feels like such a great thing to do, to take 5 minutes and go speaking directly to a potential audience in a particular and actually making, not just calling them out, but making it really relevant to their story or their requirement.
It kind of feels like it's the only way to break through the noise now. I think I was listening to one of your other podcasts with Andy Hill, I think, and just you talked about it then. Everybody's inboxes are swamped. I'm not saying email doesn't work, but my God, it's hard to break through with text-based emails now. LinkedIn messaging is bombarded. So What can you do that's unique and different and actually get someone's attention? Video is such a great way of doing that. If someone drops a video in your LinkedIn inbox, you're going to play that video. And even better if it starts with, "Hey Chris, this is actually, I've put this video together for you." And the same I think can apply on websites, and that next sort of click as you take them into that journey.
100%. Yeah, I love the application of like video DMs. It takes a little bit of effort, but gosh, what an impression it makes! What a first impression it makes on someone, especially if it. I would argue, especially if it isn't automated. You can automate that now, and lots of, and the automation's got quite good as well. But I just feel like a really authentic. I've just been on your site, just checking it out. Look, just demonstrating a little bit of effort, I just think stands out now. I'm really intrigued. The Obviously you've been rolling this out for maybe the past 6 months to a year. What you must have clients that have measured things before the introduction of ReelFlow and measured after. What have you actually seen in terms of improvements of leads captured, or even just customer experience? Like, has that been measurable for any of your clients?
So we try and really focus primarily on engagement metrics, and we'll come on to conversion in a sec. But so what we very quickly see pretty much across the board is bounce rate reduces. There's something quite intriguing, like, because not many websites are using this type of technology yet. And I think there's a bit of intrigue about, you see this sort of animated talking head in the bottom corner. People are like, "Well, I don't think this is a chatbot. Is this thing going to start talking to me?" So we see bounce rate go down pretty much across the board. And then the knock-on effect of that, we see pretty much unanimously increase in depth and length of visit. Can we keep visitors on your site for longer? Can we get them deeper into these flows, get them deeper into your site, viewing more pages? So those are the three that we see quite quickly. And then anecdotally, I think most of our customers, often when I catch up with them, they're like, it comes up in conversation quite a bit with our prospects as well. They have to mention, like I said, I feel like, I've already heard from you, or that was quite cool. Getting the founder to explain something to me on the pricing page. So those are like the easy metrics that we measure. The conversion one is a really interesting topic. On one side, I really advocating that I think in B2B, unless you're selling a product-led, cheap, single buyer solution where it really is a sort of, all about a bit more like a consumer purchase, optimizing the basket, getting people to get through and sign up and pay. For the rest of us, selling anything more complex, mid-market, scale-up enterprise, I just think so many marketers have fallen into the conversion trap, as I call it, where you're obsessing over like conversion metrics on individual pages. When I'm like, the people on your site today, 99% of them are not there to fill in a form. They're there doing their research. They're there building up their picture and profile. People on our site today is probably next year's customers. So whilst I'm not trying to like ignore conversion, and clearly it is important, I just believe really strongly that by improving the visitor experience, provided you're getting the right type of people to your site, if you can give them a better experience, build that trust, build that connection, help them, whether on your site for 30 seconds or 30 minutes, by the time they leave, are they more informed? Have they got an answer to a question they're looking for? Have they built some trust and that sort of brand affinity? And I think ReelFlow just helps rise the tide of conversion. Maybe they'll reply to that email next time. Maybe they'll answer that cold call. Maybe they'll be an inbound in 6 months' time because they've made that mental note that this is a product we'd like to look at. So I really advocate to let's sort of shift the mindset away from this kind of MQL, dollars in the top, dollars at the bottom. It's just broken. That model doesn't work anymore, I don't think.
I 1000% agree. And I talk a lot about the 95% of your audience that aren't in market, and that I feel like a human, and indeed, the example of a founder appearing and kind of guiding someone through the process, it just really helps with that kind of memory, that when somebody is in market, like you're the person they're going to think of first. Those decisions will already have been massively influenced by that kind of human connection, the trust that will have been built up. Um, I love all of that. Thanks, Chris. Uh, you mentioned earlier, let's chat about AI. I remember really distinctly, and you probably laugh when I say this. We had another call after that first call, and there was a moment in it. You were in a WeWork or something, and you're like, things are going really well. We've added this whole layer of AI avatars into the product, and I'm convinced, like I have no poker face at all, and my face dropped, like, oh no, the humanity's been stripped out of this wonderful product. I had this kind of slightly ridiculous probably reaction to it, and we ended up having a bit of a great discussion about the ways in which that can be really beneficial. Tell me a little bit about that, because obviously, like you've kind of already said that the big benefit is this authentic human appearing, and that's really powerful. How are you seeing the application of particularly AI avatar technology? I'm really interested in like which to explain is like the sort of artificial taking somebody, often maybe a founder, recording a bit of content with them, and then letting AI kind of replicate that, maybe just driving text to video really. Tell me how that has kind of gone about, what I guess why you introduced that, and how that's been used in a positive way.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, and we do have this sort of paradox emerging, that sort of this conflicting view. So we start with like the technical side of it. Yeah, there are these insanely well-funded players building this infrastructure layer for both voice and video. People like 11 Labs, HeyGen, Synthesia, Google working on their own models. So technically, it is wild how good this stuff is getting. Like even in the last, I actually think over the summer we crossed the threshold of it moving from a little bit janky and a bit like, okay, it's interesting, but you can kind of still tell to some of them it's getting so good. So the tech is moving fast and is only going in one direction. And and I think there is a spectrum here we're talking about. On one end there's, and this is not what I advocate for, although you can definitely see the applications. On one end, I'm going to go and browse a library of heads, and I'm going to go, right, I like the look of that person, and I'm going to find a voice that I like, and I'm going to match those two up and use that. And I think where in use cases where the visitor, the viewer, to some extent doesn't care who's delivering the message, they just prefer to consume in video and audio over text. You can see tons of applications for that: customer support, documentation, onboarding. I think that's where that works really well. On the marketing website, to all the points we're talking about, where trust and authenticity is a secret weapon in B2B and is so important, this is where it just gets really interesting because the tech is getting so good, so busy execs, founders haven't got the time to, or as you and I both know, whilst the barrier's never been lower to create great video content, it is still a lift. You've still got to get the setup right, get the audio right, think about what you want to say, do a few takes, post-production, get it edited, all those things you know a lot better than I do. And now there's this sort of carrot dangling of like, well, I can in 30 seconds generate a video of me saying what I want it to say.
Or my team can, without me even needing to be involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got one customer now where basically they just got the CEO in for 5 minutes, and we're just going to get you, get your avatar sort of trained up. Now, what I think is working really well, and we've got some customers doing this, is still recording the audio naturally. This is genuinely me speaking. It's my voice, and then overlaying that audio onto the pre-recorded video, and the lip sync technology, I say it's getting so good. So there's a massive time save and efficiency play, and the ability to update content regularly, and every time you publish a new page or a new update or article, why can't you quickly add a video onto that? But coming back to this paradox we've got, it is still AI assisted, AI generated content in some cases. So yeah, I think it is going to be a really interesting next 2 or 3 years as this technology continues to improve. And yeah, I don't quite know where we're going to go with it. If I'm completely honest, I'm still kind of on the fence. And you still, obviously, today, I don't think you can beat like naturally recorded conversations like this. That's undeniable. But as I say, just that the ease of which you can now create this content is there, and it's accessible. As my co-founder Andy keeps saying, it's the worst and the most expensive it's ever going to be today, and it's already pretty damn good, and it's getting increasingly expensive. There's a bit of a race to the bottom with these models from a cost perspective as well. So yeah, I don't know. Well, what are your
No,
thoughts?
oh, I have so many thoughts. I mean, it's as the founder of a company called Human Video, Chris, it is, and you know the entire premise of my company is the creation of authentic content with real people, I guess. And in saying that, like I always preface this so that like I'm not a Luddite. I use AI every day in lots of different ways, and I actually see like I've been um trying to recognize, especially recently, like really positive uses of AI avatars. Even like I often cite the example of, um, translating videos into multiple languages. And really taking one piece of content and being able to serve that up with a perfect accent and perfect lip sync, and in other regionalizing massively content, including like a company I use, Westia. They have an amazing option for this, and they have like 20 versions of Arabic. Like it's just amazing the depth and the accuracy, I guess, with that. So like that's one really good example of it. But I it's getting really, really good. I totally acknowledge and see that. I still feel like it's absolutely soulless. I think no matter how perfect speech is and no matter how perfect it looks, there's just something about it always that it's just like, oh, this isn't real. This isn't that person. And even to the extent where it makes it slightly odd to consume. I think there's a flatness to it, no matter what intonation and copied mannerisms are put in. It's just always slightly odd. And like, maybe that won't be the case in the future. But I had a really interesting discussion just last week with someone who posted the very latest version, and it was somebody who had said they'd spent a year creating a course that was a paid course, and they'd just used AI to create the entire video course content in of 2 hours or whatever. And I had this really healthy discussion with them in their comments. And I was like, uh, I'm quite sure people, especially when they're paying, they'd much rather hear from you, and hear you tell your stories with life and energy and enthusiasm, rather than just an AI script recited. And I think I totally agree that there are certain Synthesia is a really great example. Synthesia was created to generate internal educational content for large organizations. That was the reason they existed. It didn't matter 3 years ago that it was like slightly clunky, but you could take thousands of pages of content and create just like onboarding stuff and educational stuff where only internal audiences were going to see it. Then that just doesn't matter. It's a totally acceptable and applicable application of it. But I just feel like anything particularly in sales, I think, or marketing, I think your content that you put out there, I think the person that appears on the front of your website, even for that, you mentioned it earlier, that option of you see the real people, and then those are the people, maybe, the example of the AEs, or even just a founder leading something like that, is that connection of the real person that they get to know. They talk about getting to know and like, that no one's going to like the fake person, And I really like your example. It's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, of someone's real speech and applying that to something. I think of it as like a Pixar movie, like it's, I don't know, Tom Hanks is real acting, and then just being kind of having this skeleton put over it, and that, you know, that those same expressions actually been taken and everything, and presenting that a different way. I see that, like, it's so easy to do that now. You can just sit as we are now, and I could become a dinosaur or a spaceman or whatever. Like, that's really interesting application. But if I think there's something in the sales side, and I think there's a whole other interesting story of the ethics of this as well. Like, if you're in a world where I can take any video of somebody without their permission and you know, use their likeness to recreate video of anything, I think that's a tricky world to be in. That used to be a really difficult deep faking exercise that is now can be done with extreme ease, and I see it every day on my LinkedIn feed. You know,
Yeah, there is definitely a dark side to that. I mean, I think we're trying to be really deliberate in the products where people are using their avatar. We call it within the ReelFlow product. We call it like your video stand-in,
okay,
where
yeah,
people are
that's
using
a
that.
nice way
We
to think
are,
about it.
yeah, and we are putting like a stamp on these videos. Is this a real person, you know, a truly creative video?
That's
Has this been
amazing. Okay.
edited with AI? We kind of come up with a bit of a menu card that of the different shades of, let's say, at one end, AI avatar of a person that doesn't exist with a fictional
So you're
voice,
letting the
all the way
audience
through
know
to,
that, what they're saying? I really like that.
and I think we really want to lean into that. This isn't about tricking audiences or to all the points
Tricking
we've been
people
talking
doesn't
about.
make them want
So
to buy from you,
exactly,
ever.
yeah, it's got to be about if I think with everything with AI right now, ultimately it's like an efficiency play and an enabler, but there has to be this sweet spot of the output's got to be good, the content's got to be good, it's got to sound and look good, particularly in these sort of B2B use cases as we're talking about. So yeah, I mean, I just think I say there's the tech is showing no signs of slowing down. So it is just going to be really interesting to see where we get to in the next year or two. You know, an argument for it, it's a bit like, you know, if we're in a big enterprise, the PR team have written the statement from the CEO, and she or he has just read that out or said it. It's not their words; they've just the vehicle for it, and you can kind of see, well, so the video gets so good, it's almost the marketing team have written the content, and it's just the CEO, the founders, the vehicle to
It's so
say
interesting
it.
because I would always argue that's just bad too. You know, like, even an example I see a lot and hear a lot, like, we create customer testimonial videos. Like, it's one of the things where you get just this real, not just internally, but they're, you know, a client's customers being really authentically evangelical about their experience. But, like, the worst version of that I always see is when a marketing department is just like written something that they could have said, and sent an email and saying, is it okay if we post this as a testimonial? And someone goes, yeah, sure. Like, it's the least authentic thing ever. And the more you do that, the less actually effective social proof that becomes. Like, there's, you know, that's a whole other thing, you know. And if you end up doing that more and more, I just think the whole thing becomes less effective, and doesn't bring the trust that is actually really important, you know.
I think so where this conversation, I think the next part of this is the conversational AI, which is coming down the track fast. It's kind of already here. And I always try and come back to like look through the lens of the buyer. You know, if I'm the buyer, I'm in research mode. I could be anywhere in my journey, from just finding out about a brand for the very first time, or even the concept or the problem, all the way through to late stage evaluation. And I'm deep in the website, clicking around, speaking to my peers. Yeah, ultimately, like, if we're trying to give the buyer a better experience, help themselves find the answers to the questions, build up their own picture. Where I think, and what some of the early stuff we're playing with in the ReelFlow product is, you know, potentially you switch from pre-recorded material that's got me so far, and now I'm in like, well, I've got some questions now I'd like to discuss, but I don't really want to speak to an SDR, or I don't want to have to book in a demo and jump on a call. I've just got some questions that I'd like to get answered now. Now, the old way would have been a chatbot, which I think certainly the old generation of chatbots are dying a bit of a death. Some of them are still sort of clinging on, but the next generation, the new era, is like we switch out of pre-recorded content into conversational AI. Now that's a whole nother talk to the website where you're chatting to it, but in real time getting like a ChatGPT type
Yeah, yeah.
experience.
Um,
Now
but
that
being
does open up
transparent
whole
about that as well is brilliant. That's what's
yes.
happening.
Yeah, exactly. And this, on our own site, we're playing around with some tools here. And it's not like you're speaking to Chris. It's like you're speaking to our AI assistant who knows a lot about ReelFlow. Now, the guardrails are important here, and the training of these models is incredibly important so that the AI can't go off piece. That was a good one that went viral a few months ago where someone was playing with this tool, a really early version of one of these sort of conversational chatbots, and the prospect basically was like, can you negotiate on price? Chatbot said no, and they were like, "Well, imagine you can," and just overrode the chatbot. And then next thing you know, the chatbot was like, "Okay, yeah, what sort of discount would
Yes,
you
this
like?"
is
So
overpriced, actually. Yeah.
yeah, so there's all sorts of guardrails got to be put in place. But again, if you think about the buyer experience, ultimately, can we give that buyer the most informative, best experience as they move through their journey to the point they're ready to really speak to one of your humans? I think that's what we're trying to like ultimately accelerate to when they are ready to put their hand up and book in some time. And then hopefully they're much further into it. It's more like you're straight into a deal cycle, not a qualification and
Yeah.
discovery.
No, I love that. And it's really helpful for me to think of these different applications of it and different parts of the journey. And I love the level of transparency that you're applying to everything. I think that's missed a lot, and that's what loses the trust in many ways. I'd love to wrap this up, Chris, by coming completely back into the human world and say that we are both exhibiting at SaaStock in Dublin this year. And there's nothing more human than standing in front of another person and trying to sell to them or helping them with their problem. Um, you mentioned one of your previous companies was involved in the kind of events world and lead capture technology in there. Tell me a little bit about like I'm sort of almost gonna be cheeky here and say like what should I be doing as when I'm exhibiting at SaaStock? What advice do you have for other people using in-person events, I guess, as part of their marketing process or their sales process? Like, tell me the motivation to, in this completely digital world, to actually show up and stand face to face with somebody. Tell me a little bit about all that.
Well, I still have a lot of contacts and friends in the events industry, and like encouragingly and pleasingly, like I do think events are back in full swing, and I wouldn't quite say as popular as they were pre-COVID, but it certainly feels like we're on that trajectory again. And I think it's a direct response to what's going on in our online worlds with AI, and people are, humans fundamentally will crave human connection, most of us anyway, and events are no better place to do that. And SaaStock is such an amazing place for that, bringing that SaaS European sort of SaaS community together. So I think we're there, because obviously a good audience for us, and we would be there anyway, even if we weren't sponsoring, because the content's great, the networking's great, and it is just one of those opportunities to get in front and have some real conversations with people, which you just can't beat. So I think we're planning our booth. We've got a small booth, but just planning, trying to just do things a little bit differently. So many, it used to drive me mad. SaaStock won't quite be like this because it is more of a fun, slightly informal conference. Whereas, some of our customers at some of these big, probably like more traditional sectors, you go to some of these massive shows and it's just a pretty soulless, bunch of guys and girls in suits sat behind the booth on their laptops, on their phones. There's nothing inviting about me coming over there. Whereas at SaaStock, I think it is, everybody's spirits are high. It's a great opportunity to go and have a bunch of conversations with people. Everyone's there for the same reason. So that's what I would just be encouraging our team to do. Just speak to as many people as possible. And we've got a very visual product. And we're actually live on the SaaStock Europe website as well. So most people, if they've gone on the site, might have seen Alex, the founder of SaaStock, in the bottom corner and maybe interacted with the product. So that'll be a good sort of talking point for us.
That's amazing. No, I'm super excited. It's been a very long time, probably 20 years since I exhibited at anything, and yeah, I bet my stand's smaller than your stand, Chris. It's only the world's smallest stand I have, if it appears. But I was really, it sits me down to the ground. I looked at the whole thing. It was quite a long time ago, actually, that I kind of committed to it. And I just thought, like, I want to just talk to people. I want to be in front of other people. I want to chat about what we're doing. I want to hear their problems. I want to get their human reaction to I guess the story that I'm telling, like all the things that we've just talked about. I just want to have those conversations for 2 days,
I'm sure you'll have plenty of those. It is a great event for that. Everybody's very open and there to have conversations. So I'm sure you'll have a lot. Then there'll be lots of, it does get a great range of audiences as well, from, solo founders just starting out to C-suite execs at much bigger SaaS companies and kind of everything in between. So it'll be a good couple of days, good fun couple of days.
It's great. It'd be great to meet you in person as well. And it's
Yes,
just down the
it
road
will,
for
yeah.
me. It's I'm in Belfast, so it felt like a no-brainer. I'm really looking forward to and I've seen that rise in events in lots of different ways. Like I've heard a lot that people are kind of, especially in a remote, fully remote or distributed world, people are craving getting together. I even as like business dinners and things like that, those sort of smaller events and get-togethers. Like I'm involved in the marketing meetup as well with Joe Glover, and like that's just that concept of kind of coming together is I think going to be more and more important in a increasingly virtual world. I think
It's actually been a good sort of sector or use case for us. We've got quite a few event organizers using ReelFlow now on their event websites. To your point, every event has a website, but they are very human experiences. So actually, it's a great use case here, bringing ReelFlow onto an event website to talk about why you should register, why you should sponsor, what's new, what's going on. So we've got some quite interesting use cases on event sites right now.
Awesome. Well, look, this has been a fabulous chat, Chris. I really appreciate your time. Where can folks find out more about, can connect with you and crucially find out more about ReelFlow?
Yeah, sure. So realflow.com, it's REEL video reel at realflow.com, or look me up on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be more active on LinkedIn, as most founders will testify. Other things often get in the way, but I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can come find me there. And yeah, we'd love to chat to anybody listening. If it's just conversations like this or more, let me know.
Like, this has been awesome. Really appreciate your time. Thanks very much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. It's been good fun.